Welcome to the House Planet Playbook, your go-to guide for mastering short-term rentals. In this special series, we're sitting down with 30 of the world's top property managers to uncover what really drives success in the vacation rental industry. You'll hear their stories, learn the key lessons they've picked up along the way, and discover the game-changing tech they use to deliver 5-star guest experiences. If you're serious about growing your STR business, you're in the right place. We've also developed an ebook featuring the stories of every manager in this series, and you can download it for free. Head to houseplanet.club to find out more. In today's episode, we're chatting to Anna Calder-Urquhart Morris from Edinburgh in Scotland. Stand by for a deep dive into psychology, the challenges of dealing with draconian legislation, and how communication is key with both owners and guests. This special series is brought to you by HousePlanet and Hospitable, the smart AI-powered property management software trusted by hosts worldwide. With Hospitable, you can automate guest messaging, sync calendars across platforms, and manage your rentals with ease, all from one powerful, easy-to-use platform. If you're keen to run your short-term rental on autopilot, try Hospitable today. Visit hospitable.com/houseplanet to see how the platform can save you time, reduce stress, and maximize your earnings. Anna, thank you for being part of the House Planet Playbook. Let's start with you. What's the name of your company? Where are you located? And how many rentals do you manage?
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, first of all. So my company is called Adore Scotland, and I do have the Edinburgh address as well. So there's 2 platforms. We are located in Scotland. The Edinburgh address, obviously Edinburgh, and Adore Scotland throughout the whole of Scotland. On the 2 platforms, we've got about 120 listings between them.
So tell us, how long have you been going and how did you first get involved in short-term rentals?
Yeah, so I've been going a wee while, pre-Airbnb, which is strange in itself. So it was about 2006. And I had a completely different career at that point. I was in psychology, and I was sort of in between jobs and a bit bored and wanting to do something different. And we had a sort of family apartment in Edinburgh that I'd stayed in as a student. And my mum and myself had sort of refurbished it, and we were going to let it out long term. And then we thought, I was just sort of thinking, there's maybe something I could do here. I have a background as well in hospitality. I've worked in hotels and tourism attractions as well. And I really like that side of things, welcoming guests. I thought, why don't we run this as a kind of self-catering, I guess. And there were people doing that in Edinburgh at the time. It's always been a city that's had that, especially in the summer months. So I thought, yeah, let's do it. It's a beautiful apartment, really high spec, really nice. We could get some guests, but no idea what I was doing. There wasn't a lot of people doing it at that time. There were some agencies. And I thought, I want to do online booking. So I built a website and plugged in. There was actually an off-the-shelf booking system at that time that was amazing. It was called Villa Renters, and it was brilliant. Used that, and then started to take bookings. 2006. Our first set of guests were New Year, so that was a real learning curve. And then we just took bookings. The big OTAs didn't really exist in such a big way in those days, so it was about direct bookings. Although I did start to use some of them, and then obviously industry changed. But it was a slightly different landscape then. And yeah, it was great. And then what happened was started to look for other properties. Thought I can maybe make a career out of this, actually earn a living out of it. And another chap who had some properties in Edinburgh said, would you like to manage my apartment? So I did. And then before we knew it, a sort of developer who was developing 5-star apartments in Edinburgh. They were the first of their kind. And by that time, I was working with another lady, Anne-Marie. So there was the two of us, and we sort of branded the business, and we decided our niche was going to be that higher end, even at that point, and called ourselves Edinburgh Dress, and took on these luxury apartments, graded 5-star, and just went for it. And then we sort of grew the portfolio since then. But we've always maintained because it's that higher end, and because also our brand values are very much about that connection with our owners and about the connection with the guests, we've remained a sort of boutique kind of smallish agency, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Fantastic. What a journey. Tell me, what are the transferable skills from your psychology career to short-term rentals?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Well, it's actually there's a lot. So there's leadership piece. There's working with teams, understanding people, understanding the public. Emotional intelligence is really important. And I mean, it's been massive, and it's actually only recently, sort of post-COVID almost, that I've started to reflect a bit on that and really start to think, what are the skills that I can bring in? And although I know I've been using various skills throughout the years, we have really thought, how can we bring this a bit more into our brand, in terms of having it shine through a bit more? Our core values are there. It's all about connection, the human connection, hospitality. But I felt that actually we can do a bit more with that and use it to very much be part of though it's integral to our brand, I want to sort of showcase it a bit more. And I'm thinking a little bit more about how we can combine that sort of emotional intelligence side with the branding. And we're actually rebranding as we speak a little bit. So that's still to come. But yeah, there's a lot of transferable skills there, I really do believe. And also, it's not something you tire of. I never really... Psychology it's so interesting. You're always trying to think, well, why, especially working with your owners, for example, you're thinking you have to understand what it is they want, what's the journey for them. Every communication we have with an owner or a guest will you tailor it. You're thinking about, you're not just sending, for us, it hasn't worked in the past when we've done blanket communication, for example. It doesn't work with our owners, doesn't fly with them. You need to have that real collaboration, and they need to feel that you understand them. And, it's at that level really where you have that relationship. It's really important, and trust as well. Building, and for the owners, obviously, it's that you're going to do what you say you do. So you're going to have good guests, you're going to get them a good revenue, you're going to look after their property, but you're also listening to them and understanding what it is they want from their property. So not all of our owners want high footfall. Not all of our owners are looking for that. So we communicate with them, find out what it is they want, what type of guests potentially, just in terms of, are they wanting families, are they wanting longer stays? It's that kind of thing. So it's, yeah.
Talk to us about scaling then, because interestingly, you started, like you said, before Airbnb, before the OTAs. So how have you gone from just that one family property to now more than 100?
So that's a really interesting question. And I often think I actually dwell on it quite a bit, because I've deliberately not scaled at the pace that some other people have. I haven't wanted to. Now, that might seem strange, but for me, it's if we get the right properties, we can really make them work for the owner and for us. So how we've scaled is we also act as, like, I guess, a mini OTA. We take bookings for other people. So not all the properties on our portfolio, we don't, they're not just, it's not just a management piece, or we will list properties on behalf of other people. So that's how we've scaled, and we can do that. That also means scaling across Scotland for us as well. We often look for properties where the owners already do, if it's, Scotland's little, but it's still places quite far away from where I'm based, Edinburgh. So if you're talking about islands, we're not going to we're not going to manage the property there. We're not going to do any, organise any cleans or have a property manager organising cleans. So it's about getting the properties where the owners know what sort of product and what their guests are looking for, and then we'll market it for them. So that's how we've scaled there.
Talk to us about Edinburgh then, because we all know it for the Edinburgh Festival, and then of course you've got New Year as well. But I imagine it's quite a year-round destination.
Yeah, Edinburgh very much is a year-round destination. You've got your quieter months tend to be just after New Year, but then you get your rugby. So it very much is a year-round destination. It's still seasonal. You can still see that, and it's still reflected in owners' income. But yeah, we have guests coming all year. There's so much on in Edinburgh. It's a great place to visit. And there's also a lot on just within touching distance of Edinburgh. So you don't need to go far to get to beautiful beaches or beautiful hills or lochs or water sports. It's a great location, a great central base. And a lot of our guests, we get a lot of people from the States. They might come stay in Edinburgh and then move further north, go up to the Highlands, so it lends itself to that kind of base part of Scotland where people come in and then they go and visit other parts as well. So yeah.
We've heard a lot about the regulation issues, the licensing issues in Scotland and in Edinburgh specifically. How have you dealt with that, and what are the main challenges that you've been facing as a result?
Yeah. So, it's no secret to everyone in the industry that Scotland's brought in some quite, I guess, draconian or disproportionate licensing, shall we say. So when I heard initially that the licensing was coming in, as an agency, we actually thought, that could be a good thing for us. It's going to just make sure we're not having to encourage our owners to get safety certs, because we've always done that. We've always asked for safety certs and had that level, we've gone for that professional side of things where you have to have X, Y, and Z to come onto our books. So owners might say, do I have to? Where's licensing? Obviously, you can't get a license unless you have that. So we were relatively optimistic about it, but it's because it's I won't go into massive detail because it's quite complex, but it's the planning element that's made it very, very difficult. So owners are getting licenses, they're expensive, but they're getting them. But because the planning, they've not grandfathered anyone. So that means that unless you've been operating for 10 years and over, it can be a struggle for people, particularly in Edinburgh, because they've got the short-term let control zone. But I do believe the Scottish Government got themselves in quite a fankle about it all. And how I've dealt with it is I became involved initially in this sort of a fight. I couldn't just stand back. So a few years ago, we raised money to take Edinburgh Council to court. So we raised over £300,000, a group of us, some other amazing people in the industry, and of course spearheaded by SSE, Fiona Campbell, great, determined. Fiona's super determined, and everyone in the team was, at that time, were like, right, we're not gonna take this lying down. So we've just been out there, and we won. We won again. That was various aspects of the licensing, not planning. It's complicated, but Edinburgh Council hasn't backed down, and it's still an ongoing issue. It's still difficult for owners in Edinburgh, and self-catering, short-term lets are still being shut down, unfortunately, if they don't have that planning. That was the main way I dealt with it, was to just get involved and advocate for the sector, and I'm still doing that. Still, it's an educational piece as well, because I don't think the public have understood really what's happening. There's been such a negative press against short-term lets, and unfortunately they've bought into that a bit. It's obviously much more a nuanced argument, and so I think it's an educational thing. And I also believe, I was at a round table in Scottish Parliament a few weeks ago, and we were discussing with MPs there a little bit about what's happening, and one of the MPs actually said, well, I didn't vote for this. They didn't really realise they were looking to control numbers. They weren't looking to ban it or de facto. That's not. So I think there's just been some misunderstanding about the sector, about the industry, about what, unintended consequences of, rolling out policy, unfortunately. And these things are like steam trains. I think once they get going, it's really hard to turn them back, even if you're like, oh. And because the planning element was involved, it's created this difficulty. So yeah, I mean, hopefully things can change, because no one wants self-catering is so important. Short-term let sector are so important to places like Scotland, throughout rural areas rely on these cottages, and I know there's talk of over tourism in certain areas in Europe and Scotland. So it's a very, very complicated debate, I think.
What would your message be to the lawmakers now in Scotland? And how has the licensing issue affected Edinburgh, particularly around festival time?
Yeah. So my message would be really listen to the professionals on the ground, really listen to Fiona, really listen to the SCC, the STA, Scottish Tourism Alliance as well. These are professionals who have been involved in the industry for years and they really do understand what they're talking about. Try and listen, try and work with the sector, try and understand that, a lot of people in this sector are not in it to make lots of money. They're in it because they're hospitality providers, or their self-catering property was a pension, or, don't tar us all with the same brush. We're not party flat, but really, really listen. So now's the time that they have to. There's solutions being put forward on the table. So I would say really listen and engage, and collaborate fully.
And then how has the situation affected major events like the Festival Fringe?
So it's been pretty, well, it's affected the festival in a quite spectacular way, I would say. Prices have skyrocketed. So really have skyrocketed. And again, we have our crystal ball. This is what us as, in the industry, we were saying this would happen. You reduce the supply, and our industry is vital in the festival time. So many performers would come and stay in properties, but even at the higher end, if your family's coming and they're staying for 2-3 weeks, they don't want to stay in a hotel for 2 or 3 weeks necessarily. They want to stay in an apartment near the shows that they might go into, or the book festival, or whatever it is they're going to. So prices have skyrocketed. But the other thing that's happened, which is really, again, it's a worrying unintended consequence, is that the black market is really kicking off, and it's really worrying. So there's the Facebook pages that you see, people are advertising the properties. They don't have a license. Therefore they don't presumably have the safety certs. So it's almost like it's done the opposite to what it was intended to do. So if it's supposed to be about health and safety and keeping the public safe, it's actually making that worse. And these, I guess, as well, that's the scary side of it, actually, and scams too. You see them on, people saying they're advertising properties that they just don't exist. So I don't think it's a particularly great. It's not in terms of Scotland as a destination and somewhere to come to. I don't think it doesn't feel like it's a great advertisement. Really,
it's not a good advert for legislation. That's for sure. Going back to hosting then and delivering a great guest experience, what would your top tips be for delivering a great guest experience?
Yeah, so for me, I think try and be as personal as you can. Really, every guest is different. And whether you're using AI, I know that, there's amazing AI models out there that you can use, or whether you're speaking to them one-on-one, try and deliver that service that particular guest wants. So ask them what they're interested in. If they're interested in, going to museums, then it's about telling them where they're, where they can go if they like, going to restaurants, supporting that. So yeah, we know this great restaurant. It's about that personal service. And I think answering emails, answering communication really quickly is really, really important. You can't actually put a value on that. If people are sitting waiting for a response, especially if they're in the property and they need some support, but even in the run up to the stay, good, quick communication, I think, is very important. In fact, I would also say, get the basics right. I stayed in an apartment recently abroad, and we were there for business, and there was two of us, and we were given one set of keys, and I was like, it was a 2 or 3 bed apartment, but I asked for another set, and I was told I'd have to pay for that. And I just thought, this is not hospitality. This is not, there's something fundamentally wrong here. Just get the basics right. Give people keys. If there's two bedrooms, give them 2 sets of keys. You've got to assume might be, even if they're a family, they might have older kids going off and doing their own thing, and they don't want mum and dad just holding the keys. So yeah, I think that kind of thing. Comfortable beds, getting your beds comfortable, making sure the apartment has is warm. But that's a hospitality piece is really, really important. So yeah.
And what are your top tips for keeping owners happy?
I think I go back to what I was saying a bit earlier, is find out what it is the owner really wants. So for some, it's revenue only, but for others, it's not that. And it's trying to understand your owner and then communicating with them in a way that conveys that you understand them and understand what they want. So if that is about making sure occupancy, or if that is about making sure they're getting enough bookings, or if it is actually just making sure that it's washing its face, whatever it is that they want, it's finding that out. But also, it's about having a good relationship with owners and a good collaboration. And if you can't get that, then don't work with people. I say as well. Genuinely, if you can't have a place where you're happy with each other, or there's something not quite right there. Yeah. So yeah, I would say work with people who you feel you can work with on both sides.
When you look back over the nearly 20 years, what's been the biggest lesson learned in the industry?
So for me, there's so many lessons, but it's just a really simple one. Like, don't take things personally when you're dealing with the public. It really is. It's having that, and that rhino skin, I used to call it, getting that thick skin. You can't please everyone. You're trying, you genuinely try your best. As long as you're trying to provide the best service you can, you won't always get it right. And don't take it personally, even if some guests will make it personal. They'll get really upset, and you're dealing with or owners dealing with owners. So it's that and it's easier said than done. But for me, I think that is something I've managed to do a little bit. It's just, and also take time out as well. Time out from the business. Just put it somewhere and go off for a walk, or try and do something different, and not ruminate about things, because you can easily do that. Yeah. And
what do you love most about your work?
I love the connection with people, meeting people. I don't meet so many guests now from the how I work now. Obviously, it's more about meeting people in the industry where I'm meeting, still meet owners, but meeting amazing entrepreneurs and fellow people in our sector. We've got so many amazing minds and companies that you deal with, whether it's tech companies, whether it's cleaning, whether it's people dealing with baggage drop off. We're a very vibrant sector, and I love that. And I love that every day there's something new. Whether it be developments in AI or in a PMS, or whether so you're always learning. I never sit back and go, oh, I know it all. You just, that's impossible, I think.
Okay, then, Anna, we've got a few more quickfire questions now. So, which PMS do you use?
Bookster, Scottish-based company.
Keeping it local.
Yeah.
Which dynamic pricing tool do you use?
AirDNA, they're integrated into Bookster, hence we use them. So.
Okay, lovely. Which piece of tech couldn't you live without?
I'm going to be boring and saying PMS. I mean, is that okay? Couldn't really work without that.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Ideally, pets, yes or no?
So for me, it's a yes. I love my dogs, but I do understand why some owners don't want them, and so that's fine by me.
Another one, ideally, hot tub, yes or no?
Well, I can't. So no, for me personally, really don't like them. Actually, we don't have that many on our books, but we do have the odd one. So yes, some guests absolutely love them, and in certain settings, yes, they're amazing for guests, but no for me.
Quite a few of these are a yes and no answer. Actually, that's what we found doing these episodes. Self check-in or a personal welcome?
I'm going to say personal welcome, but you see, this is the thing. Some guests prefer the self check-in. But yeah, I think personal welcome. Yeah,
A telephone call or an AI response?
telephone call.
And what's been your most memorable hosting moment?
Oh gosh, got so many. I think some of them are when they were the most difficult ones. We were difficult, and this was going way back when I think, and again, still learning. So 18, whenever we were meeting guests, we had to get obviously our security deposit. We didn't have, we had to, sometimes we could take it via PayPal, but sometimes we had to take it via, actual cash. It's crazy. And because sometimes guests didn't want to use, they were a bit reticent to use, online in those days. So, and one time we turned up and the guest, he said, "I'm not going to give you the security deposit. Don't you know who I am?" And I actually didn't know who he was, but I thought, I presume you're someone famous. And I said, "No, I'm really sorry. We absolutely need this security deposit. We can't, that's just, we can't operate." And he started to take his watch off. It was a Rolex. He said, "I will give you this." I said, "I'm really sorry, sir. Life would just be so much easier for both of us if we just process the security deposit as per your terms and conditions," kind of thing. So that was quite funny. It was the "don't you know who I am" moment, and people actually coming out with that and saying that. And yeah, but I didn't know who he was. So.
Was it anybody famous?
He ran. No, he wasn't actually even that famous. He had we have had some famous guests. I've got stories about them, but I probably wouldn't tell them. But no, he ran some big chain in Edinburgh, so I didn't know.
Okay, fair enough. Did you take the Rolex?
No, probably stupidly I didn't. Yeah.
Shout out time now. Is there an individual in the STR industry who's helped you that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yes, definitely. So at the start of the podcast, I was talking a little bit about how we started, and one of the property owners that came to me was a chap called Craig Douglas, and he was instrumental in kind of jump-starting my career in this. I worked with him for quite a few years with some of his properties. He now runs his own agencies as well. So, but we've always collaborated whenever we can. And yeah, so definitely Craig.
Nice shout out for Craig then. Questions finished then. Ultimate goal for your business?
So I like staying kind of small-ish. However, so the Adore brand's the newer, the more sort of baby, and Adore, the Edinburgh address is our older kind of one that's been around a while. So I'm really hoping that Adore beds itself in as being a very much more established brand, and especially within Scotland. But yeah, so I just want to be known to be one of the best at what we do, which was take on lovely properties, carefully curated. We only take properties on that we like or we stay in. So we do that filtering. We genuinely just won't take anything on. So just really for the Adore brand to establish itself even more than it is now.
Fantastic. Anna, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for being part of the Host Planet Playbook.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Alright, that's it for today's episode. My thanks to Anna for sharing her journey and for being part of the Host Planet Playbook. Remember, this series is brought to you in partnership with Hospitable, the all-in-one property management software designed to save you time and help your business thrive. Hospitable automates your guest messaging, syncs your calendars across platforms, handles team tasks, and so much more, so you can focus on delivering a top-notch guest experience or just get some of your time back. And here's the good news. Host Planet Playbook listeners get an exclusive 14-day free trial plus 25% off for the first 3 months. Head to hospitable.com/hostplanet to claim your offer and start running your rentals on autopilot. For more free education for vacation rental hosts, head to hostplanet.club, where you can sign up for our newsletter, listen to our podcasts, and download our suite of ebooks. Until next time, happy hosting.